Hello, my name is Bo Grice. I am the trauma specialist at Wiregrass Angel House, and I just want to take a moment and make you aware of something that sometimes can be an issue when people are going through grief recovery or recovering from a traumatic experience, and that is something called getting stuck. That's usually the phrase people will use, and that happens when someone feels like they're not making progress anymore, that maybe they have been walking this journey for a while, and for a while things got better and the emotions were not as bad as they were, and the times of feeling overwhelmed were spacing out like they should, but then something happened and progress stopped. Usually the something that happens is either the introduction or exposure to more trauma, or some type of an emotional issue or unsettled business, if you will, that the person has with the deceased or surrounding the death of the deceased. So it could be unfinished business, such as having a conflict with the person, not saying something to the person that looking back you wish you would have said, not doing something for the person that looking back you wish you would have done, and we're always back to that famous statement, if only. If only I'd known, this would have been different. So and in a sense, some of that is normal. We all go through these times when we're overcoming the loss of someone, where we go through the if onlys. If only I'd done this, if only I'd done that. So in a sense, some of that is normal. Where it's not normal is when we get stuck with that and we just cannot move on, because one of the things you have to do in order to move on is to forgive yourself. And forgiving yourself doesn't mean that you don't look back and say, boy, I wish I could go back and change things right now, and if I could, I would, and all that's expected. Forgiving yourself just means that you say, there's nothing I can do to change it. All I can do is move forward. So I'm going to move forward now and go on with my life, and give yourself permission to live again. But if someone gets stuck, what do we call that? Well, in grief work, we call that complicated grief, or sometimes people call it complex bereavement, something along those lines. Basically, the idea is, and I use this word cautiously, in normal grief recovery, the process, well, in a sense, you never get over it. And we'll talk about that in a later video. But in the process of working through the emotions and adjusting to the loss and adjusting to a new normal without the loved one takes about a year. Now, that's not a hard, fast number, and if you have been doing this for 2 years, that doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. I'm just saying on average it takes about a year. When the loss is something unexpected, or such as the loved one dies in an accident, dies at the hands of someone else, dies through suicide, or something along those lines, unexpected losses usually take longer, and the grieving process usually takes a little bit longer to walk through. But in complicated grief, you never get it through it. Complicated grief just continues to, it's like the old movie Groundhog Day, where the day just keeps repeating over and over and over. And in complicated grief, that's what happens. The symptoms never really get any better. You experience as much distress 5 years later as you did the very first day. Usually there's some major hurdle that's in the pathway that's preventing you from being able to move on, and that major hurdle is something that until you can get around it, you're never going to make any progress. And again, a lot of times it's some type of hurdle associated with unfinished emotional business, and at that point, there's nothing you can do. Now, other than forgive yourself, the big mistake, though, that people make is, instead of forgiving themselves, they decide they're going to punish themselves for the rest of their lives. And so once that decision has been made, then that obstacle becomes a mountain. and it becomes even more difficult to get around because you've convinced yourself that not only will it not get any better, I don't deserve for it to get any better. And so once you get down into that pit, it's hard to climb out. My encouragement to you is, if you're there, get help, seek professional help. Now, I work at Wiregrass Angel House, and I'll be happy to talk with you, but you may want to go somewhere else and get help. That's just up to you, but I'm available. If you'll just call the office, I'll be happy to talk with you. You can email me if you want to, and we can get together and see if maybe there's something we can do to help you start making progress again. But getting stuck, that's no way to live. And getting stuck in no way helps your deceased loved one have a better existence. It doesn't balance out any scales of justice. They're not coming back just because you decide, well, I'll just punish myself from now on. So my encouragement to you today is this: if you're stuck, if you've been walking this journey for a long time and aren't making progress, get help. There is help available. And so next, in a future video, we'll talk about what that help is. Have a great day.